Welcome back to Team Talk on ESPN Radio 1017 The Team. We're getting ready for tonight's Lobo at Air Force game here at 7:30 on Fox Sports 1. And joining me now to discuss that game and a bunch of other stuff is a college football Hall of Famer and a pro football Hall of Famer. He's also a former Lobo. And Brian, we miss seeing you this summer. You've raised tens of thousands of dollars for Salvation Army with your charity golf tournament each year. So hopefully we'll get back on track next year, huh?
Yeah, Joe, I miss being there. That's a fun tournament. And most of it's you, by the way, raising the money because you do such a great job rounding up everybody. But, yeah, it's been a different year, hasn't it? Really different.
Really different, really different. And a different season for New Mexico Lobos football. They got a new coaching staff. You sent me a note after the San Jose State game, the first game of the year, saying, these guys play hard, Joe. I like what I see. Tell us a little about your thoughts on Lobo football, Brian.
I'm excited about the direction we're going. I know we're 0-3. Danny's they play hard. From what I can see on TV and their attitude, the kids play hard. You got the quarterback running for every yard he can get. The running backs fight for yards. The defense gets to the football. They're in a tough spot with the position that the state has put them in with the way they have to travel, and they can't come home. They can't play home games. It's just every game's a road game for them. And it's got to be hard for them to be on the road like the way they are and play the way they played. They're competing every game. And I would think as a head coach like Danny is, you want your guys to compete. Of course you want to win every game, but they're out there competing. They're not giving up, and they're fighting for everything.
No doubt about it. And the parameters that they faced even before that San Jose State game, they only had like a couple of weeks of practice where they could go 11 on 11. And before then, they were literally practicing in groups of 4 or 5. So they're getting ready for Air Force tonight. Here's what head coach Danny Gonzalez said about having to prepare for Air Force Week.
I really hate preparing for Air Force because on the chalkboard, they win every time. I mean, it's an offense that is impossible to stop. When they're done playing college football, they're going to fight for the freedoms that we enjoy and live with every day. And so I respect what they do and how they do it. I just hate playing them on game day. And it's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, that part of it's fun. The physical nature of it. I mean, there's going to be times that you're going to have all 22 guys within 10 yards of each other. And who knows what's going to happen. It's almost like a rugby scrum, or as our punter would say, an Australian rules football scrum. It'll be exciting. It'll be fast-moving. Now, we don't have very many guys on the defensive side that have played in this game against the triple option. So the speed of it is just really hard to adjust for. If we can get through the first couple series without getting just scathed, we'll have an opportunity to play very competitive and have a chance to win the football game.
We're talking with college you love that, huh? Yeah. Talking with college and pro football Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher. So take us back about 20 years or so when you guys were preparing for Air Force. What are the things that come to mind when you were getting ready to play them and go against that triple option offense, Brian?
I think Danny hit it on the head. You talk about the speed. You can't prepare for how fast that option gets on you. It was, for me, in the secondary, it was easier because I had time to react. But up front, man, those guys have to be off their blocks and get their assignments so quick. It's dive, quarterback, pitch. That's what you got to be, every play you got to take care of those three. And then they throw a reverse in there or a counter. And Air Force has been pretty creative with creating misdirection plays, as have all the option schools now because they have to be more creative. But Danny's right. It's going to be a physical game. I think it gets one up front like you do most of the time when you play those guys. But, man, 20 years ago, that was my last college game, was against Air Force. We beat them at UNM, and we had no success against them my first couple of years. They beat our butts pretty bad. It beat us 56-14 one year, and then we ended up beating them my last game, and Danny's last game of his career. So we both went out on top there versus Air Force. But looking forward to watching the game tonight.
No doubt about it. I mean, that was one of the biggest smiles I saw on your face was, the last game at New Mexico, you guys beat them 33-28 because, as you mentioned, the year before, up in Colorado Springs, 56-14, and their head coach, Fisher DeBerry, didn't have very many flattering things to say about the Lobo football program. You probably remember that too, Brian.
Yeah, well, I don't blame him. There wasn't a lot of good that he saw from us in that game. We just got our butts kicked. We were not. I'm not saying we were always ready to play. We just didn't compete. That's what it comes down to me. I don't care what the talent level is at any game. If you go out there and compete, you should have a chance to win or at least keep the game close. And we didn't do that. But we got him back my senior year. We outplayed them. We we competed, we got to the football, and we made some plays.
Tell us, the 3-3-5 defense that Rocky Long is known for. Of course, your defensive coordinator is Bronco Mendenhall, who's a pretty good head coach at Virginia as well. So there was a bunch of different minds that went into it, but obviously Rocky was the lead dog on that. Like, what is the philosophy of that defense? Explain it to our listeners.
That defense, there's not a lot of big guys up front. It just creates havoc with all the stunts and the twists from the linemen. You get the linebackers blitzing. Usually there's 5 guys coming every play. You know where those other extra 2 guys are going to come from the 3D lineman. You have a backer and safety probably coming every play. And it just creates havoc. You have to prepare for so many different things. It's amazing to me how well Rocky's defenses have done versus the run, especially at San Diego State. You saw what they did versus the run over there. They're always good. They're very sound in the running game. It's hard to do that with only 3 D linemen in the game. Then it comes down to scheme, how well your coaches call the game. And I've been impressed with how physical our guys have been up front this year at UNM. Our D linemen rotate in and out. They run to the ball. But tonight they're going to be tested. It's hard versus that scheme, that triple option scheme, to stay disciplined and do your job every play.
So, Coach Franchione had more of a conventional philosophy on defense.
Coach Patterson, 4-2-5 is what we ran with my first 2 years with Coach P.
Coach P, who's at TCU. That's right. I forgot about that.
Pretty good job, if I'm not mistaken, over there, too.
Last I checked. No doubt. But it was perfect for you with your skill set, because you got a chance to stop the run, go after the quarterback, and even drop back in pass coverage every once in a while, too.
Yeah, you're talking about Rocky's defense.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was unbelievable for me. I just got to run around. I was the Lobo, so I rarely ever got blocked. I was the extra guy in the box when we dropped down. And versus Air Force, it was phenomenal because all I did was go dive, quarterback pitch. I ran literally inside out every play, and it was a pass I would drop. But this is a great offense to play for the Lobo back because you're literally running inside out every play. Whoever has the ball, go tackle him. The last guy with the ball you hit. It's a lot of fun. It really gave me a chance to showcase what I could do as an athlete, not just secondary or linebacker, but as an athlete, just run around and make plays.
And, you got yourself 178 tackles as a junior. You led the country in tackles as a junior. And we're talking with Brian Urlacher on the Daniels Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Cool Take Hotline, the college and NFL Pro Football, or the Pro Football Hall of Famer. And Brian, so I have to ask you real quick, the pressure that it puts on the defensive backs, the cornerbacks, the safeties. As you know from watching the Lobos play this year, where they've gotten stung is on big plays. I mean, literally, I went through it like the Hawaii game, for example. Hawaii had 500 yards through the air, and 5 plays accounted for 250 of them. So it really puts a lot of pressure on those guys, but it also gives them opportunities to make names for themselves because they are out on an island, right?
Yeah, man, playing corner is not somewhere I'd like to be. I'll tell you that much. It's tough. Those guys, and plus with all the rules now in place for the offenses, it's hard. It's hard to play corner at college and NFL level. But they're good athletes. They're out there for a reason. I'll tell you what helps the pass coverage is a pass rush. When you got pressure on the quarterback, you're gonna have a chance to be successful. I was impressed with the San Jose quarterback, Starkle. That first game, man, he did a good job. That kid's good, and he's done well every game since they played the Lobos too. I was impressed with. He's a Texas A&M transfer, so the kid should have done pretty well, and he did. I didn't get a chance to watch the Hawaii game very much because it was too late. It's a late night for me. Actually, I think it was afternoon. Anyway, it wasn't on where I was at, but it's just it's tough playing corner, man. Those guys are on islands. If you're playing man, anytime I feel like if you're playing man coverage and they catch the ball and you tackle them in front of you, you've done your job. It's tough.
And Brian, certainly, the Lobos have been a lot more physical this year. Like you mentioned, and we saw that on full display last week with the running backs knocking off helmets and all these things.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest thing for you that's looked different, or you can tell that the Lobos are doing differently, like that's maybe led to them being more physical?
I mean, I think, number one, the mindset that Danny and Coach Long have instilled in them. I'm sure the other coaches, they don't put up with guys who aren't going to be physical. They want tough guys on both sides of the football, offensive, defensive line, receivers, corners. They want tough guys, and if you're not tough and you don't compete, you're not going to play. I don't care if you're a walk-on, if you're a third or fourth string. If you compete, you'll have a chance to play for them, especially if the guy in front of you doesn't want to compete. They don't want, and that's for me. I see that on film. I see that during the games already. They got guys out there that may be outmatched talent-wise right now for the moment, but once the talent catches up and their ability and their competitiveness. They're going to be good. I'm excited about what they're doing already, especially what they've instilled in this team the first couple games.
It's an interesting juxtaposition for this program right now because we know about their losing streak. You know, it's certainly come up, but at the same time, you know, Danny's talked about how he thought the last 2 weeks the guys were a little bit too fired up at halftime because of how close and how competitive the game was. So, I mean, what would you say to these guys, you know, when they're in these close moments like that?
That's tough because I think if you never want to get used to losing. That's for dang sure. But when you get in these situations where you are close at halftime, that's when you got to hunker down, man. You got to get in there and you got to take your adjustments from your coaches and find a way to win the game. It is exciting to be close at halftime when you've lost that many games in a row. I do agree with that because I've been there. But you know, you got to find a way to calm yourself down and get back out there and compete the second half again.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Bears, Brian. A lot of hope for their team. I mean,
Joe, I'm going to throw a precursor out there. I've only watched one game of the Bears this year, and that was Monday night. So I don't know a lot about them right now. So I haven't watched a lot of NFL football this year. I've watched quite a bit of college and a bunch of high school, but not a lot of NFL, honestly, to be truthful with you.
Okay, then let's roll into high school because your son Kennedy, all right, he's a freshman, and from what I understand, he's starting on the varsity. What's up with that, man?
Yeah, it's so stressful, Joe. So he's a freshman corner, and he's earned him a starting job on the varsity, not because of his last name, none of that crap, because he's a good football player. You know, he put on 25 pounds this year since last season, and he got faster and stronger, and he competes. You know, I talk about competing all the time. And he goes out there, he wants to get better, he competes. But let me tell you, as a father of a kid who plays corner, it stinks. It's so stressful for me, man. Dude, every play, Joe, because I know they play a ton of man. I'm like, damn. And he's had 5 passes caught on him all season. In 7 games, they've only caught 5 passes. But it's so hard to be a parent when your kid plays corner because every play, it could be a touchdown. You know, it could be an 80-yard play. But he's done good. He's competed. So proud of the way he's handled the situation this year.
And their team is doing reasonably well, I guess?
Yeah. So they're in the playoffs already. If they win tonight, they'll host a playoff game on Thanksgiving weekend. And if they lose, they'll have to be on the road. You know, this will be our 8th game. It's very exciting to have, you know, I know New Mexico hasn't played any sports this year. It's very frustrating. Luckily, we have a good governor here in Arizona who's found a way to let our high school kids compete and play some football. It's great for the seniors. And also with our college kids, they can practice here at their stadiums and still go play all their games because they've done a good job of keeping us pretty much normal here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And so, Brian, like, what kind of things do you talk to him about as far as, you know, not so much the X's and O's, but just, you know, wanting to be the kind of athlete that he wants to be? What are the things that you, reinforce? Because you had really good leadership when you were down in Lovington. I mean, you had some
great
amazing,
coaches, great teammates. Yeah, I was fortunate. He does too. He has really good coaches too. You know, his coach is Joe is Bobby Newcomb.
The former Highland High in Nebraska quarterback.
The best high school player I've ever seen in New Mexico was Bobby Newcomb. Bobby was the baddest dude I've ever seen. He scored pretty much every play. Him and Jared Baxter were in the backfield for Highland back in the day. Jared was my teammate at UNM. Bobby went to Nebraska. He was a quarterback. Anyway, so Bobby's his coach. So I know he's getting coached well. But so I just try to talk about mentality, honestly. I'm like, dude, I know you're going to get beat sometimes. You're going to miss tackles. It's just part of football. It's about how you bounce back. I want him to be competitive. I want him to bounce back. It's funny because he doesn't really listen to what I say. It's like I don't know anything. You know, I'm his dad, so he's like, whatever, dude, you know what you're talking about. But I feel like he's coming around a little bit, listening to me more. But he's done such a good job of applying himself and trying to get better. He asks all the right questions to his coaches because I'm in contact with him. He's a smart football player. You know, you can't really just to be smart, you got to apply yourself. And he cares. He wants to do the right thing. So couldn't be prouder of the way he's reacted this year. And it's hard as an underclassman to start with a bunch of seniors out there because you're going to be picked on a lot. And he's done a good job handling that.
No, that is neat. It's like you tell him something and he kind of looks at you and you're like, well, what do I know, right?
Joe, you have no idea. It looks like me like I'm a complete idiot. I'm like, dude, I believe it or not, Candy, I did play a little ball back in my day. I know what I'm talking about a little bit. He just looks at me like I'm crazy. So I'm like, you know what? Do what your coaches tell you to do. Do what they tell you to do. You'll be fine.
But that's really neat that, you know, he's progressed to the point where he's suiting up with the varsity. What kind of size does he have, Brian?
So he's only about 160, 165, which is, you know, I look back to my freshman year. I was like 5'9" or 5'10", same height as him, but I was only like 140, 145. So he's got me by 20 pounds. And then that's when I hit my growth streak when I got to my sophomore, junior, senior year, and hopefully he'll do the same. But I think he's going to grow out of corner pretty soon. I think he's going to be too big. He'll be a safety or a linebacker before he's done playing high school football.
All right. Well, thanks so much for giving us some insight into what it's like to face the Air Force Academy, Brian. And like we talked about, 2021. Hopefully, we get you back here and we have the 5th annual Brian Urlacher charity golf tournament to support Salvation Army. And thanks so much for everything, Brian.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me on. Let's go Lobos tonight. Let's get a win.
There you go. Brian Urlacher, the Hall of Famer, joining us here on Team Talk on ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team.